The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
We'll wait just a moment and let folks come in. They're coming in pretty quickly. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning. My name is Mike Hubbard. I'm Director of International Trade here at EDPNC, and I want to thank all of you for joining us today to talk about the new STEP grant year that begins on October 1st. Before we start, I have just a couple of housekeeping things. Just so you know, we're going to record the meeting, and that recording will be sent out to all of you tomorrow, a link to that recording. And then for anybody that's not on the call, that'll be available to them as well. As we go along, if you have questions, please put them into the question box there on the right. Don't put them in the chat box, put them in the question box, and we will get to all the questions. We have a lot of things to cover today in a short period of time. If for some reason we can't get to all the questions during the call, we'll get you answers. So please ask any questions that you have at all. We'll get back to you. And then finally, for housekeeping, in the handouts there, you see there are two items. One is the PowerPoint that we're going to go through today, so you'll have that. And the other is a self-certification form if you're a small business. We do keep a count, and that's how we're able to keep an official count for SBH to the sheer number of companies that participate when we do these. So if you would sign that and return that to us, that would be very helpful to us. If we've already got one on file, then we've already got it. But if you haven't done one, please do fill out that self-certification. Let's jump right in because we do have a lot of material to cover. I think most of you know who EDPNC is. We're the economic development group for the state of North Carolina, created 10 years ago now. Can't believe it's been 10 years. We were created from Commerce, but we're not a state agency. We're a public-private partnership. We work on contract with the state exclusively for the state to do any kind of economic development, including business recruitment, business retention, international trade that my group does. We have a small business support group for startups here in the state to help them get started. And then all the tourism marketing for the state of North Carolina is done out of our office as well. The international trade team, this is our team. We're back up to full staff now. We've got 5 international trade managers, and each trade manager has specific industry sectors that they cover. And there's a reason for that. As you know, when you get into international trade, there are strange, unique, squirrely rules sometimes for specific industries. And all of our team members understand those rules, and they understand the differences, say, between textiles versus pharmaceutical products, and the various requirements, certifications, or stumbling blocks that you might run into. So they're able to help and guide and lead you with that as well. Our team does a lot of different things. As I think we're known very well for, we go to trade shows. We have North Carolina booths at trade shows. And of course, we have the STEP grant. But we do other things as well, including market entry plans, market selection, and going through and doing the research, regulatory studies. We have also overseas trade offices, 4 offices, Canada, Mexico, Europe, and in the Middle East, that can help with detailed regulatory questions, with trade show assistance and that sort of thing. And then we've got a nice partner network as well with Commercial Service, SBTDC, and others that can help as well with other questions when we're not able to answer them. And we all do work very well together. One other thing, our foreign offices come here to the state every year for our road show, and that's typically in July. We spend a week going from city to city, and our team sets up meetings with you and any of the trade offices that you want to meet with. So you'll hear from us later on, probably early next year with the dates and where we're going to be on that. So be on the lookout for it. And then finally, getting to the meat of what we're here to talk about today is the STEP grant. This is a grant we get from the U.S. Small Business Administration. It is exclusively for companies, small businesses, typically meaning 500 or fewer employees. So small businesses to export, and it's a pretty flexible grant. It can do a lot of different things, and Cheryl Morrow, our STEP grant manager, will go through this with you and walk through the offerings and how to take advantage of that. But it's a reimbursement program. You work with your trade manager here on our team, and they'll walk you through the process and make sure that what it is that you're thinking of, they'll help you figure out to make sure that it qualifies. You go through the process. Cheryl sends you a link. You fill it out. It's all online, so it's a pretty simple process. And then you're approved for certain projects, including there are trade show reimbursements for booth costs, and in some cases, if you're traveling with us, for travel expenses, but also other things like digital marketing or translation services, or you taking advantage of the U.S. Commercial Service and other things. So in a nutshell, that's what it does. Cheryl's going to jump in now and walk you through the grant, what's available. It's changed. As some of you might have used it in past years, it has changed a little bit, as it does every year, just based on SBA requirements. So Cheryl, you want to take it away and tell about the grant?
Thanks, Mike. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad that you could join us. And to those of you who have used the STEP grant before, I'm glad that you're able to join, because we do tweak the program every year. So I'm glad you're here. And to those of you who have not used the STEP grant before, we look forward to working with you. The STEP grant is a 12-month program. We are now in step 12, which will start September 30th of this year and run through September 29th of 2025. Qualified companies can take advantage of up to $12,000 per company. That is the max. The program does require a formal application process, and you will receive a formal approval from us, and you should wait for that approval until you move forward with any project or activity. The update from last year is in step 11, companies were eligible for up to $16,000. And with step 12, we've moved that down to $12,000. And the reason behind some of that is, for those of you that used the program last year, you know how quickly we committed all the funds. It was like the first 4 weeks the program was open. So we're taking it down so that we can hopefully service more companies that way. Next slide. So eligibility. This is all the eligibility criteria. You have to be organized or incorporated in the U.S. and registered to do business in North Carolina. And how we check that is we go to the Secretary of State's website, and we ensure that you are do appear on that website and have an active status. You need to be operating in the U.S., and nonprofits are not eligible for the grant. There is a size standard that you can look up. Generally, it's 500 employees or less, but again, it's kind of industry specific. So if you have your NICS code, there is a link there that you can click on, and you can plug your NICS code in there, and it'll tell you the requirements. Your business must have been in business for a year or more. You have to have a working website, and you need to be able to have resources to bear the costs associated with trade. Things like packing, shipping, freight forwarding, custom brokers. You need to ensure that you have those financial resources. Product or service to be exported must contain at least 51% U.S. content. This will be a question on the application. And if you answer no, that it does not, you'll be getting a phone call so that we can have a conversation to see if that really is the case, because there are things like overhead such as rent, salaries, research and development that affect that 51%. And it does include those things. Your business needs to be in good standing with no debarment or pending any legal actions. This is an important one, the next one. So you cannot have any outstanding STEP surveys. So for those of you that have used us, if you have responded to all the surveys, no problem. If you have not, we won't process or send you the application until that survey is completed. Your business cannot be receiving STEP from another state, or you cannot have an owner who has two companies, but it's the same owner receiving STEP for both those companies. And we encourage everyone, whether you have a lot of export experience or none, to apply. Next slide. So the application process. It starts off with you having contact with your international trade manager. At the end of the presentation, I've listed what industries those managers support. You would contact them. You'd have a conversation, a consultation. They will kind of pre-screen both your company plus the offerings or the activities that you're looking at applying for funding for. Once they've had that conversation, the international trade manager will let me know to go ahead and send the application to you. And you will receive an automated email from our Salesforce system with it's an email with, it will have a link to your company specific application. You'll click on that link, complete the application. Sometimes those automated emails go to your junk mail. So if you don't see something, I usually get those out very quickly. If you don't see something real quick, check your junk mail. So once you are in the application, if you have started the application and you cannot finish it, there is the ability to save the application. What it will do when you click that save button is it will generate an email to you with a new link to the saved application. That's really important that you know that, because if you go back and try to use the link that I originally sent you, none of the data that you had previously entered will be there. You have to go through that saved link. Just wanted to make you aware of that because that was an issue last year for some folks. Once you submit the application, you will receive a confirmation email, and that's will provide you a copy of the application, but also let you know that it has been sent. Once we receive the application, our team reviews it. We will review it to make sure that you have cost estimates, and I'll get into further detail as we go along, but we will not earmark any money if you have not provided cost estimates for the offering that you're applying for. So that's real important. Also things like, it could get rejected if you are applying for something that is outside the program year. So, but the email that you get will tell you that, as you see below. There's an approved email, a rejected, or a waitlisted. Waitlisted would be if we have committed all the funds, we then start waitlisting folks. And I will tell you that it's very feasible for us to get to the end of the program year, and even after the end of the program year, and have some funds that we can unwaitlist some folks for. So definitely, if you're going to go ahead and do the activity, regardless of whether you get funding or not, I strongly encourage you to go ahead and submit the application and stay on the wait list, and you might be pleasantly surprised. Again, if you are approved, you'll get an automated email. It'll run through what you've been approved for, and you will get an approval email for each offering that you've applied for. It's not one general one, it's for each offering, because you could potentially be approved for one offering but not for another. So each email will indicate the offering that you were approved for. It'll tell you the timeline for when reimbursement documentation has got to be submitted by. And it'll give you a list of all the required documentation that you need to submit for that reimbursement. Make sure you hang on to those approval emails. Next slide. If you are rejected, you will again receive an automated email, like I said, with a reason why it was rejected. These are some of the common reasons, and real common is missing cost estimates. As I said, we will not earmark without cost estimates. So just make sure you have all of that in place. We have enough time, at least the next couple weeks for you to figure out what it is you want to apply for and start getting those cost estimates ready so that when the application period opens up, you have everything you need to submit right away. And again, just talking about the wait list, we are able to clear a lot of the wait list. So again, if you're going to proceed with the activity, regardless of funding, there's a huge chance that that wait list can clear. Once you have been approved, you can complete the activity and you pay for it in advance. This is a reimbursement program. After you've completed the activity, then you would submit for reimbursement. I keep track of when activities are scheduled to end. Things like booth and travel are much easier. I know when they end. There's hard dates that they end, and I send you the evaluation form. Again, it's an automated process, and I will send that to you. The things that are a little bit difficult to know when they end, which I rely on you to let me know, are things like the digital ad marketing or the website localization. So I kind of rely on you to let me know when it's completed, but I'll be following up because we do have a time period that we expect you to complete those activities. Like website localization, that's like a 5-month wait time, and sometimes it goes longer than that. And I'm reasonable. If you've not completed it in 5 months, but you're fairly well along, I'll extend the end date. But if you've not even started it in 5 months, more than likely we're going to want to decommit those dollars and put them back into the pool. Booth can be paid for up to a year prior to the event, and airfare can be paid for up to 6 months in advance of an event. Those are the only 2 items that you should pay for prior to being approved for the STEP grant. And that's assuming you're taking your chances that you might not get approved for the STEP grant, and you're doing it anyway. Next slide. So now we'll kind of dig into what are the program offerings. There is trade show travel, however, that is very limited. We are now making that available only if you are co-exhibiting with us in an EDPNC booth. That cap is $3,000 per event, and it counts towards the 12,000 company max. If you only use travel and you're going to 4 shows with us, you could use that travel 4 times for the 12,000 company max. Booth and registration fees, and again, this is for qualified trade shows and trade missions. They are capped at $8,000 per event. Co-exhibitor fees, if there are any, are not reimbursable through the grant. And again, you can use booths multiple times up to the 8,000 event max, and then up to the $12,000 company max. Next slide. Then we have another set of offerings that have to do more with export services. You can, again, the key thing here is 3-8-12, 3,000 max per event for travel, 8,000 max for any other activity, up to the 12,000 max per company. So export services includes things like our U.S. commercial services offerings. That's your gold keys, your international partner searches. It includes digital outreach services, e-commerce, localization of your website for overseas markets, translation, and that could be of marketing materials, or it could be translation of your U.S. website, digital ad marketing, XM credit insurance, and marketing lead subscriptions. There is another offering. It's our export education webinars. We provide those at no charge to you. There is a link there where you can register for those webinars, and later on in the presentation, I'll go through what those are. That does not require an application process, so you do not need to fill an application out to take advantage of that. I guess our update from last year to this year is that there are no longer category caps. Last year we had travel and booth category cap, and then we had a export services category cap. This year there are no longer category caps. It's just 8,000 max per event or activity. And for travel, it's 3,000 per event, up to 12,000 for the company max. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit more about trade show travel when you exhibit with us. Again, it's the 3,000 max. It includes only lodging and airfare. It does count towards the company max, and it's available for up to 2 company employees with travel originating within the U.S. You must adhere to the Fly America Act, which is an American carrier and standard economy class seating. The lodging is limited. There's a federal per diem rate for cities and the months of travel. And there is a link to the lookup tables for both domestic shows and international shows. And again, it's 8,000 up to 8,000 per event or activity for everything else, but for travel, it's 3,000. Next slide. I just wanted to, this was a problem last year that when people were clicking on the link to the federal per diems, they were not looking in the right column. They were looking over at the maximum per diem rates, and that included meals. This is just for lodging. So just make sure when you're looking up those in the table that you're looking at the right column. It's just lodging you're looking up. Next slide. So here is a listing of a lot of our events, EDPNC events that we are having booths at or attending. And again, this could change a little bit, but right now this is kind of our stake in the ground. This is what we're planning on, and there might be some future changes. We've kind of given it in by date order and also industry, so that you know what the industry is for those shows. And then we've given you the contact name of the international trade manager that is heading up that specific event. Next slide. And this is a continuation of those up until the end of the STEP grant program year, which will be September of 2025. Next slide. So now we'll talk about booth and trade mission fees, again, up to 8,000 per event. It's for an in-person booth registration at an international trade show. So in the COVID times, travel with all the travel restrictions, we had approved a lot of domestic shows as long as there was international content. We have really scaled that back since travel restrictions have been lifted. And on a limited basis, we will look at domestic shows, and on a case-by-case basis, we will approve some. There are not a whole lot of domestic shows that we approve, but you can definitely talk with the trade manager about that when you have your consultation, and we'll get an answer to you on that. Virtual booth registration at any trade show, again, with an international focus is eligible. And trade mission participation and registration fees is another one. So those trade missions could be with U.S. Commercial Services, they could be with us, or NC Ag does a lot of trade missions, lumber trade missions also. So those are eligible through the grant. And again, those items you can use up to 8,000 for. And it can be used multiple times, but up to the 12K max. Next slide. Here are some of the export services offerings that we have. Again, these can be used multiple times, but remember, it's a 12K company max, and a lot of these type services, at least the digital outreach services, they're quite expensive. But you do have up to 8,000 for those activities. Or if you had 3 gold keys that you wanted to use it for and they were 2,000 each, you would still be under the 12K company max. So It includes, like I said, the U.S. commercial services offerings, and there is a link there to their website page for you to get more information on some of those offerings. Digital outreach, e-commerce localization of your websites for overseas markets. And when we say localization, we're really talking about on a domain in the country. So like at China, it would be a .cn. For Canada, .ca. So that's what we mean by localization. But there are services available for translation of US websites. So that is something else that you'd be eligible for, along with digital ad marketing, marketing videos, and translation of your marketing materials. That's something that's allowable also, but printing costs are not reimbursable. It would just be strictly for the translation. And we do have lists. If we do have some providers that we know of. So if you really don't even know, we can provide you with a list. The translation of marketing materials, we really like for you to use North Carolina companies for that piece of it. And we can provide a list of those companies within North Carolina that do that translation. But for the other services, like the localization, e-commerce, the only thing that we ask is that it be a U.S. service provider. Export-import bank, credit insurance premiums are also available, and marketing lead subscriptions are also available. And I hate to beat a dead horse, but again, it's up to $8,000 per activity, and it's a $12,000 company max. Next slide. So I talked earlier about some of our export education webinars. So we have 2 grants at EDPNC. We have the STEP grant, and we also have an MEP, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership Program grant. Both of those grants support these free educational webinars. Again, you do not have to submit an application. You do have to register for them, and we do send out e-blasts so that you will receive notice about these webinars with a link to register. If you're not getting these blasts for any reason, you can also go to our website at edpnc.com, and you can, under export services, you'll see export events. You can click on that and you can see all of our, not only webinars, but our shows that we are planning on attending or being at, I should say. This is the schedule right now, and this will not change. This is kind of set in stone. So you can, and these are on our website now. So if you want to register now, you certainly can go ahead and do that. Next slide. There is also something through the SBTDC. They run a export boot camp. It's a 4-session virtual workshop. If you are at all interested in that and you're looking at getting reimbursed through the grant for this, you would have to fill a formal application out. But Owen George over at SBTDC is who you would contact to register for that boot camp. We also have a what we call a export coffee talk. There's my New York accent coming out. It's a monthly panel discussion with subject matter experts and also companies that have used or who have expertise in some of these export topics also participate in the coffee talks. It's, again, free to register and attend. And it's just a very informal way to have a conversation and learn from other companies, other export subject matter experts. We hope that you'll, if you've not checked it out, I hope that you will. There is a schedule. It should be on the website. And again, we will blast that out in an e-blast to let you know when those are coming up so that you can register. Next slide. So we are very big on trying to automate our processes. So in addition to the application process, we also have an automated reimbursement process. As I was saying earlier, I try to keep track of the things that have hard end dates, like travel and trade show booth. And as soon as I look over that list all the time, and as soon as I see you have a show that has ended, I will automatically send you an evaluation form. Within that evaluation form is where you would submit for reimbursement. You upload your documentation for reimbursement. There is every reimbursement requires that you complete an evaluation. We will not provide reimbursement until that evaluation is completed. You'll also need to upload the reimbursement documentation that is outlined for you in the approval email. But if you can't put eyes on that approval email and you just need to know, give me a call. I'll just resend it to you. Everything is listed. Write out what you need. Some of the documentation is your W-9. We need that completed and uploaded. Payment instructions. That is where you tell us your information, your ACH information, so that we can submit the payment through ACH. And that is our preferred method. There are other options, but again, ACH is the preferred method. Part of that documentation that we require is for you to invoice us at the end of the event or the activity. So if you were committed $8,000 for, say, digital ad marketing, but you only use 6,000 of it, you would submit an invoice to us for the 6,000. We pay your up to the max or your actual costs. And we would need to see proof of payment. That typically, if you pay by credit card statement, sometimes on an invoice, it will, especially lodging, it may have Visa and then the last four of the Visa number and then show the amount paid. Something like that is acceptable. But just saying an invoice that says paid stamped on it or something, we need to know the form of payment, the date it was paid, all of that information. And your airfare, this is another one that a lot of people get hung up on. I need to be able to see the class of ticket, basically the itinerary. It tells me the dates of travel, tells me the airline, tells me the class of ticket. And then a lot of times in those itineraries, it will show what you paid by, and it'll, like I said, have paid by Visa, the last four, and then the amount. And that's fine if it's got all of that, but I need all of that. Lodging, again, I need a detailed invoice from the hotel showing the daily rates that you paid, because there are federal per diems per night, and you have to abide by those. And the only way I can tell if you did is by looking at that detailed invoice. And then for things like website, digital ad marketing, I need the invoice from the service provider to you showing what they did, how much they charged you. Again, we just need to be very clear, and I need to be able to see everything. So please make sure that you're providing that as well. So the payment is issued pretty quickly, actually. If you send me everything that I need, I can get those processed very quickly. What slows things down is if I have to reach out to you, you forgot this, and then, you take a week to get it back to me, or maybe you don't respond at all. It kind of goes to the bottom of the pile. I mean, I'm trying to reimburse you, so I just, to make things go quicker for you, it's kind of like help me help you. Give me what I'm asking for, and be reading that approval email so you know exactly what I'm looking for. And then once that happens, once I have everything, I submit it to our finance department. And again, they turn that around fairly quickly too. And they will reimburse to the form of payment that you had on that form that says payment instructions. However you requested us to pay you, that's where they're going to be paying you. You will be asked 9 to 12 months after you complete an activity to complete a step survey. That is critical. As you saw in the earlier slide, if you don't complete it and we've sent it to you, the next time you come back for step funding, you'll be denied. So make sure that you respond to those surveys because the SBA requires us to do that. And we want to keep our funding, and we want to hopefully at some point get more funding so you can help us in that effort. Next page. Here are some frequently asked questions about the STEP program. What trade shows qualify? So again, you've got to be looking at the time period. Program begins September 30th. It ends September 29th of the following year. It's got to be an international trade show. If it's a domestic trade show, you're going to need prior approval for that on like I said, a case-by-case basis. Do conferences qualify? If there is an exhibition component to the conference and you are exhibiting at the conference, then yes. If not, no, STEP will not reimburse for conference attendance. Do trips to visit with potential partners and clients qualify? So typically, if you were doing that alone, no. But if you are combining some visits while you're attending a trade show, then yes. Again, that would be on a case-by-case basis, and you'd have to provide us with some more documentation on who you're visiting, etc. Next slide. What types of website projects qualify? So that would be things like your e-commerce, localization to another country, adding foreign languages, metrics, currencies, translation of a US website, they all qualify. And again, things like your digital ad marketing, I just want to kind of bring this up too. If you are doing a video or doing some digital ad, it needs to have an international focus. So for you to just do a digital ad with really not addressing the international focus of the video, that would probably not be approved. Can I use STEP funding offerings more than once? Yeah, you can use them multiple times, but again, travel, there's a max of $3,000 per event and only up to the $12,000 company max. When you're filling these applications out, keep that in mind. A lot of people want to just apply for everything, but you have a $12,000 max. So if you know your website is going to exceed, the website localization is going to exceed 12,000, there's no sense in filling out for other stuff because you would have already met the company max. Same with booth. Travel, if there was 4 shows that we were going to and you wanted to co-exhibit with us, you could potentially apply for 4 shows at $3,000 each and then use your max up that way. Booth, again, I feel like I'm repeating a lot, but I guess you can't say it too many times. $8,000 cap up to $12,000 max. And then website localization would only be one time you would do the localization in that market. And then your export services, those are some of the things that it includes. Again, up to $8,000 per activity or a 12K max. I will point out, however, as you're having conversations with your international trade manager, we do have an issue with the automated application in that if you are looking at applying for travel, say 4 travels, even 2 travels, we would have to send you 2 applications. But once you fill out the application once, I would then clone what you submitted and send you back the new application. It would pull everything from your base application. The only thing you would have to put in there is the other show that you want, the second show that you want to go to. You'd have to put in information for that, but that is it. And then you would submit that with the cost estimates. Same with booth. Booth is the same way. We can only submit one application for booth. So if that issue arises, make sure your international trade manager knows, and they'll let me know that I'm going to need to send you a couple applications. Next slide. Can I use any vendor for my website? Again, yes, you can, as long as it's a US-based service provider. And we can provide you with some vendors that we know of. They're not recommendations though, but they're ones that we have not received any kind of complaints on. If we do, we remove them from the list. But again, we are not making any recommendations. How can I learn more about website localization? Talk with your ITD manager. That would be a good conversation to have on that first call that you have to make to them. And if I don't use funding from one offering, can that funding be added into another category? We've done away with categories, so there's no more categories to deal with. The only cap is $8,000 per activity, with the exception of travel, which is a $3,000 cap per event, and a $12,000 max. And you would have to be, let me make this point. If you applied for, say, travel to one show and and you were approved for it, and maybe a month or so before you're going to go, you decide you're not going to that one, but you'd like to replace it with another one, that is fine. But you have to, in advance, let us know, and so that we can make the change. It has to be beforehand. It can't be an after the fact thing. So keep that in mind. Next slide. Is the feedback I share with you confidential, including my reported export dollars? Yes, all of that information. I know people are very reluctant to provide us with that information. We report it in aggregate to the SBA, so they're not seeing what company reported what amount. They're seeing it in aggregate. So if there's a time though where we want to highlight your success, we are very much wanting to tout successes for companies. So if that were to occur, we would only do that by contacting you, getting your permission. We would never just put that stuff out there. So we always ask permission first. And if you're wondering why our ROI is so important, so North Carolina, we're allocated these funds from the grant, and the amount that they give us from year to year is strongly correlated to the previous year's return on investment. Again, the aggregate number. So it helps show that what we're doing, and that's what you would expect from a grant. Like, if it's not helping your state, why would we give you more money? So that's how we go about kind of like, being able to go back and say, we would like more money. Right now, our state is receiving the maximum amount, which is great, but we're hoping that at some point that will continue to grow. So ROI is extremely important, and you'll get that question on your evaluations when you submit for reimbursement. We'll ask you, what were your direct sales? Say it was a show you went to. What were your direct sales? What are your projected sales? I think people are real reluctant to put in, and you could have zero direct sales. In fact, that's very common because, you're just going to the show. Usually it's afterwards. Sometimes it's not for 18 months afterwards until you can report sales. But projections are really helpful too. Look at the leads that you got at the show. And if those leads were to come to fruition, go ahead and put that in as your projected. Nobody is monitoring or double checking you on what you well, you said this. It's not like that at all. So please do fill those in as much as possible. It really will help us to help you. Next slide. Can I use travel and booth funding on the same trade show? You cannot use both categories for the same event. That's been like that for quite a while, but I just want to reiterate that you cannot get travel and booth for the same show. Can I apply for every funding offering? Again, like I said, yes, you can, but keep in mind there's $12,000 that you have to work with. So, make sure that you're supplying us with cost estimates for all of those things, because they'll get rejected if you don't. And then B, make sure you're keeping in mind that you have a 12K max. Can I apply for an event or project that has already happened? No. You have to apply and be pre-approved for the activity, the trade show, the travel in advance. It's not an after the fact kind of thing. Next slide. So Mike had talked at the beginning of the webinar about some of the other services that our International Trade Division can provide to companies. It's not just the grant. So he also mentioned the Go Global Roadshow. That is our big yearly event that we hold. We have 4 international offices: Mexico, Canada, Middle East, and Europe. And once a year, they come over and we travel throughout the state, and we allow companies to schedule 30-minute one-on-one sessions with those offices and those markets. And it's just a real good opportunity for you to meet them face to face and talk with them about your business, about those markets. Be looking for that. We used to do it in April, and the past 2 years, I think now we've done it in July, and it seems to be a pretty good time, other than it being extremely hot. It's a pretty good time for that event. So be looking for more information on that. That'll be posted on our website. And again, we will do a blast, an e-blast, so that you are aware of it. Distributor and partner searches, market entry strategy, and I think you can read these, market intelligence, and our foreign offices help out with some of those distributor searches and partner searches. They do those for us for free. Now, U.S. Commercial Services does some of you'll see some overlap in the services that they provide and what we provide. We do it for free for companies, and theirs is at a cost. Some of their services are eligible under the STEP grant to be reimbursed. But if you are looking for a distributor search, say in Mexico, we would not approve you under the STEP grant, because we already have a Mexico office in place that could do that for you for free. So just keep that in mind also. And again, one of the other things is certificates of free sale for non-food or non-drug products. And I can do those for you here in-house. Again, those are at cost though. Those are not free. So I think it's like $50 for standard service, which is 1 to 2 weeks, and $75 for expedited service. Next slide. And as I was saying, this is our team. I've given you contact information for each of the trade managers. I've also given you the industries that they support, along with their email address. These are the folks that you're going to start having your conversations with, and talking about, if you're new, is your company eligible? And then if you are, then talking about what offerings you're looking to apply for. Next slide. So at this point, I'd like to go ahead and open up for any questions. Do you see any questions in the question box, Joyce?
Yes, I do. We have quite a few. I think some of the questions were answered during the presentation, but it might be good for a review.
Okay.
We have some greetings for Mike from Jason Phillips. And when will the application be sent? It's from Dawn.
Okay.
Giordano, I think.
Okay. So the application will be sent as soon as you've had the conversation with the international trade manager. they pre-qualify you, the offerings. At that point, they'll send me an email and then I will send it directly out to you. No applications will go out before October 1st.
Okay. Next is a greeting from Dave LaRusso. Glad to see you, Dave. And he also has a question. Is the travel per person max 3K, or if two owners use the same company, attend an EDP&C overseas show?
So the 3,000 is for up to 2 employees. So it's not 3,000 each, it's up to 2 employees. So if you have 2 employees going, you have $3,000 to work with between the 2 of you.
Okay. And Allison has a question. To clarify, trade missions can be 8K or 12K for a company that wants to attend a trade mission?
That's correct. Up to 12,000. Well, no, I'm sorry, up to 8,000 for a trade mission. Yes.
Okay. So it's not 8 or 12, it's only 8.
8, the max your company can, yeah, it's travel 3,000 max for that offering. Booth and everything else is 8,000 max. And your company can only get up to 12,000.
Gotcha. Okay. Tom Bixby, are exceptions considered for international air travel where standard economy seating must be upgraded for physical limitations?
So something like that, yes, and we have had issues with that. So if there's some documentation that you can send me that shows that there is a medical, reason for it, then yes, I can justify for not, just economy seating.
Okay. Next question from Barbara Kennedy. If it appears that most of the approved programs it appears that most of the approved programs relate to marketing, e.g. trade shows, digital marketing, and website development translation. Would the STEP program cover fees up to 12K for the registration to export to a specific country?
Okay, so it's a $8,000 max per activity. And a company can have up to 12,000, but I'm not quite sure. Mike, if you're still on registration for
export to a specific country?
Yeah, I'm not sure I fully understand the question. If there's multiple activities, but you're focused exclusively on a certain market, like Mexico, say, but you do a trade show, you do website or what have you, those would be separate activities. So you could do that.
Okay.
Am I answering the question?
If we have not answered that question the way you intended it, feel free to give us a shout out. You have the phone numbers there. You can contact me, you can contact Mike, and we can kind of talk through the question further. Yeah, I'm not sure what exporting registration fees you're referring to.
Okay. Next one, Fabio Rosa. For the MWC 25 Barcelona, is the opportunity to exhibit within the NC booth there, or only if we go with our own booth?
You can go with your own booth. That is not one of the shows that we have on our list that we provided, but booth, you can go on your own to a show. You do not need to be with us. The only time you need to be with us in one of our booths is if you are looking for the $3,000 travel reimbursement.
Yeah, that was the show we just added, the Mobile
Oh, did we just add it? Okay.
Mobile World Congress.
Okay.
So yeah, we.
Okay. Next question, David LaRusso, or is it 3K per person? I think that's an extension of a previous question.
Yeah, no, it's 3,000 up for up to 2 people.
Up to 2 people, gotcha. Okay, Tom Bixby, with software as a service, SaaS companies offering solutions consumable by international users / companies be eligible for STEP?
Are we
Yes,
talking?
Yeah, talk to Kuldeep Poisson is our trade manager that would cover that sector, and we do have other software companies that we work with. So talk to Kuldeep about it and what you want to do. But yeah, that is an export that does qualify.
Okay. The next one from Allison Onsrud. Who do we reach out to see if our trade show we want to attend would be approved for reimbursement?
Okay, so if it is a domestic show, you have to reach out. Your first step, regardless of anything, is contacting the international trade manager. That's the only way you're going to get an application, is to have a conversation. So talk with them and they'll let you know. Pretty much most international, if you're traveling internationally to a show and you're exhibiting, it'll most likely it'll be approved. But if it's a domestic show, that's where they would get further information about the specific show that you're looking at. And like I said, we are really not approving a whole lot of those, but we will on a case-by-case basis address those.
Okay. And the next question is from Ann Thorpe. Cheryl, thank you for all the new information. Do we work with the same manager as previous year, Blake or Melissa, or will we be working with Anna, the new digital ad manager?
No, we don't have we don't have an Anna on our staff. So these are our international trade managers. And I'm glad you asked that question, because we have had a little reorganization of the industries with some of our managers. Mike Ryan recently joined, Jerry fairly recently joined, Jerry Barudis. So we have kind of realigned some of the industries. That last page that we were just looking at, look on there or on our website, and the trade manager that is assigned for your industry is who you need to reach out to.
Okay. And that was the last question. That's, well, oh, Ann Thorpe says thanks.
You're welcome. Well, and great timing. Yeah, I really want to thank everybody for attending. We really appreciate it. And we really look forward to working with everyone this year. Again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. And now is a good time too, because, you know, the application, you want to get these questions answered before the application period opens up. I could say by us reducing the grant amount per company to $12,000, that maybe we won't run out of money as quickly as we did last year. But that was my mindset last year when we ran out of money quicker. So I think it's just the word is out there now and people are really beginning to take advantage. One of the other things too that we do to try to reach more companies is we do say if you have been receiving STEP funding for 5 consecutive years, you have to sit a year out. So we already know of some companies that won't be eligible to apply this year because they meet that criteria. So we are trying our best to service as many companies as we can. And it's amazing and it's great. That's good news. Hopefully we can get more money from SBA to service more companies also. So in any event, thank you again, everyone for attending. I hope it was informative. But again, if you still have questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And oh yeah, you will be receiving an email with the a link, not a link, with a video recording of this session, and there'll also be some information about the self-certification. If you could complete that and forward it back to me, that would be wonderful, so that we can count your company as having been served. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.